Well, good morning everybody. 26th of June 2020, and I had a discussion with my dear wife this morning, and she suggests I do not a book necessarily, but an article or something, and maybe this video as well, outlining in a brief way some of the miracles that have happened to me. And I do mean they're miracles. Some of my friends who are, I'm a Christian by the way, and so I have a number of Christian friends, but I have not a lot of non-Christian friends and relatives. But I ask you to give this a fair go, in other words, because I'm not going to Bible bash anybody. I'm just going to outline what I consider to be miracles, and you decide for yourself what you think about it. And to say that I'm lucky to be here is an understatement. I'm blessed to be here, fortunate to be here, and I'll try, as I said, to be relatively brief but straightforward on this. Now, it all started back when I was born in 1952, so when I was around about 10 years of age, I was with my cousin Judy down in the Yarra, up in Warrandyte on the Yarra River in Melbourne. We were told not to go in the river and not to go swimming and what have you. Well, being kids, you won't obey that necessarily. You might, just paddle. So we paddled out all right, and then I ended up going down a 30-foot hole. Now, the Yarra River's got these holes that most people would have no idea about. Anyway, I went down this hole, and honestly, some of the things I'm going to tell you are quite funny in some respects, because that's the way it was, but this is not funny. Look, it's a classic. I literally went up twice and down 3 times, as the saying goes. Filling up with water. I mean, my mouth was forced open. I was just filling up like a bottle. All of a sudden, I could see a silver tunnel leading up to the sky, and I was right under the water. I was going down one of those 30-foot holes, like I said. See this tunnel? I was astounded by it. And then there was a guy in a white cloak. Don't jump to any conclusions. I'm not saying it's Jesus. I'm not saying it could be an angel or what it is. I'm just saying it's a vision, okay? But there's a guy in a white cloak. And he is showing me, like a slideshow. I was, years later, I mentioned it like as if you got pictures put on a coffee table, just boom, 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 one after the other. And he said, do you want to live? I was only 10 years old. Yes. Anyway, I blacked out. Now somebody, my life exists because my cousin Judy must have yelled out, help, 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 my cousin's drowning or something. Went down this hole. Somebody came in and got me. Dived in and got me out. Now, semi-conscious, or should I say. I understand I might have been given mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but I'm not entirely sure. But they did pump the water out of me, pushed me, they got me going again, so to speak. And in those days, I'm talking the 60s, they didn't rush people off to hospitals or anything of that nature. Anyway, sent home. Well, I said to my... very specifically remember this. I spoke to my mother about this. I said, "Oh, I saw this thing and the tunnel and this and that happened," and she said, "Oh, you've had a hallucination." Now, I didn't accept that. But many years later, I found a book, and it's still around, I understand, by a Dr. Moody, and it's called Life After Life. It's about near-death experiences. And this was a long time ago. as I say, I got this, I mean, I assume the book was published in the 60s or 70s, something like that. Now, Dr. Moody had examined carefully about 2,000 cases of this near-death experience and found a very large percentage of it was quite provable. Now, I'm sure that it actually happened. It's not a hallucination or a dream or something of that nature, because many, many years later, by the way, that's only 10 years old, so some years later, I was in bed, but I was developing, once again, lucky I'm here, because I had meningitis. I didn't know it was meningitis, of course. How could I? My parents called the doctor, and when I got rushed off to hospital. But just before that happened, this was a frightening experience. I left my body, and I went up to the ceiling. I was up on the ceiling, right, and I had my arms stretched out, and I was looking down at my body on the bed, and I was thinking, if I don't get back in there, I'm going to be dead. Well, I remember it going in between my eyes, went zap back into my body. In other words, my spirit went back in there, and I went off to hospital and I was treated. Pretty amazing sort of thing, circumstances, let's say. Anyway, got out of that. So then, that was, again, I'd say almost pre-teens, maybe 12, maybe 13, I don't know, but around that period. Then I joined the Victorian Railways, and the story there is quite amazing. I was what they call a lad trainee, which is trainee for nothing really, but anyway, it's a job for these kids who would help the car builders, or some other would work in the workshops or do some other jobs as assisting tradesmen. Anyway, one day there was a absolute pea super fog. I mean, you couldn't see, say, 10 to 15 feet. You just couldn't see anywhere beyond. I was sent across to get half a dozen sheets of glass for the windows. I used to put the old wooden cars, these Tate cars, and that used to have wood, and they had sheets in the window. Bead the beading, go and get the sheets, go and get the handles. It's a case like that. Go and get me a couple of handles and half a dozen sheets of glass. So I made my way across Jollymont Yard, and those older people amongst you would remember how wide and how big that yard was anyway. So I really was careful, but I was picking my way across to get to the sidings to where the car was being repaired. Very carefully, trust me. Well, I put one foot over the signal cable, like the little box that runs on little struts beside the track, for signals. One step, and out of the fog, I'm talking few feet away, seconds away from me stepping into death, came a rail car out of the fog. I froze, right, whoa, glass under my arm, literally. It passed by, and I picked my way across to where I had to go. Now, you can call that luck, you can call it just one of those things, maybe, But I was 1.5 seconds, as I describe it, from death. Now we move forward, let's say, in life, and I've had a couple of, I think I've lost count, but probably around about 15 operations over my lifetime, incidentally. Just tell you about several cases that have to be described as miracles. I had a very rare cancer, and that involved a 13-hour operation, incidentally. Anyway, it was quite amazing to have that operation. But I was involved. I actually I must fast forward a bit because I've forgotten some of the details of what had occurred. But I had that operation, and anyway, I had remission. You go blank on some of these things, so excuse me for that. I had remission, and would you believe, 15 years later, it came back in the same location, astounding the doctors. I then had radiation treatment, and I had what's called brachytherapy, which is radiation, these little tubes they put in the back of it was on the back of my neck, and it went up to my brain. Anyway, this situation occurred again, as I said. Now then, here's what I have to describe as a miracle. This is the second time, it's like 15 years later. So when I was 40, so when I was 55, I had this amazing, extremely rare cancer reoccur. Anyway, I had a major operation. Well, actually, I was told initially, I got this lump that night, and the doctor said, yes, you've got cancer. And anyway, shortcut to the story, that off to the Princess Alexandra Hospital, and we can whip that out. The doctor said, I can have that out by Christmas. So, no, we're going off to the Philippines. We'll go off to the Philippines and come back in the new year, and we'll do it then. Well, I got back, and when the doctor saw, there's another doctor there who saw it, grabbed the case, let's say, got all the, this is life-threatening. We have to get this done. So I had the operation. It was quite a major operation, you can imagine. Anyway, right after the operation, there was, she'd come round, this doctor, and she came into my room. It was a public room, by the way, usually about 4 people in it. Came round and she said, I got 90% of it. It's on your brain. It went this tumour went right onto your brain, and I got 90% of it. We cut it away and everything. She said, but we'll have to watch that, And I had a tear in the eye. I said, oh no. Anyway, Lottie came into the hospital and told a story. And then she said, oh, no. She began to pray. There was about, as I said, there were literally 4 of us in the room, public room. She began to pray quite boldly. Lord, take this tumour away. No further treatment, no medication, nothing. Get it out of the body. In Jesus' name, quite literally, okay? Well, let's say, middle of the week, well, the doctor came round. Oh, you're going to have an MRI, that's right. Have an MRI. Let's see how it looks and everything. I had this MRI, and back in the ward, there's nothing to it, And she came round, and she said, oh, how you going today? And he said, I'm fine, Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, she said, the cancer's gone. She went on her way, Cancer's gone. My goodness, another tear in the eye, Well, I thought, this is quite amazing. How could this is a prayer that's been answered, Well, I told other people about it. I told a couple of our relatives about it, and I won't name the relative, but anyway, he said, no, the body can do that. That's nothing. That's not a miracle. The body can, the blood cells or whatever can eat that. Car's all deflated, you can imagine. Oh, well, I thought, I reckon it's a miracle. Anyway, I spoke to my friend Peter Navarre, who's a lifelong Christian, and he was a eye specialist, rather brilliant. He was even asked to be a professor, and he didn't take that up. But anyway, I talked to him about it and said, "Oh, gee, this is what happened to me." And what do you think about it, Peter? Because he don't, as I said, this man was a specialist. Oh, he said, yeah, the body can eat that. The blood, I think it's the red blood cells, don't quote me, either red or white, I don't know. The body they eat it all up. He said, but it's a God thing. The blood must be effectively programmed to do certain things. It's like everything else that goes on in the body. It's all pre-programmed, guys. I don't care what anyone says. The miracle of life, even evolutionists call it the miracle of life. Well, I don't want to go into a debate about that, but other than saying that the complications of eyes and blood and brain and all the rest of it don't come around by accident, by chance, by millions of years of trying. Imagine the evolution trying to get things right, without thinking about it, by the way. Imagine that. But anyway, that's what he said. Well, okay. So, you're not going to believe this. I had I as I said, had this operation and all the rest of it, and sometimes must have had a scar there on the head. Might have scratched it a few times or knocked it off. Anyway, one day I knocked the scar off. Didn't think anything of it. There was no blood. There was no pain. Went out and said, "Well, Lottie, let's have give me a haircut in the backyard." So I get out in a chair and put the rag on there to catch the hair, and she sits me down in the chair. I'm about to cut my hair, and she said, "You got a hole in the head, I can see right into there's a hole, see right into your head, right inside. Oh, you better go to the doctors about this." So I rang the doctors up. Oh no, they're all booked out, and I said, "What, Tom? I got this thing like." Knocked the scar off and there's a hole there. Oh, you better call an ambulance. So I called this ambulance and they came along, and I went outside and met you. You're the patient? Yeah. Well, come on in. And they sit down. Oh, come sit down and tell us all about it, blah, blah, blah. And he had a hole in the head, Better get you to Ipswich Hospital. So I went up to the hospital. They would... We'll put you down for this and that operation and everything. I went to my doctors actually, and send you to the PA hospital. So I went in there. Now you're not going to believe it. Now mostly these doctors, by the way, they're taught not to alarm the patients or the public or anything else by what they see. But this doctor, who had been in on the original, the operations, he introduced himself. My name's Johnny. He's a Singaporean. What have we got here? He looked at it. You got a hole in the head, and you're walking. His arms were fraying like that. So you're walking around in the public. Quick, I'll give you a CAT scan. I'm going to see our plastic surgeon and our neurologists, these doctors. You're going to have to fix this up. So I had the CAT scan. I went and saw the doctors, and they were amazed. And this doctor, Johnny, he said, "Can I take a photo? Can I take a photo of that?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. What's it going to be on Facebook later?" "Oh, no. I was only joking, of course, He took a photo of it. He was amazed. Well, then I had this operation, and it fixed up. Too long a story, but he operated on this hole. He said, "Well, what I'm going to do," he says, this is just before the operation, I'm in there on the trolley. Big smiling, even I had the head mask and the stuff on. I recognise smiling away, and I'm going to burr it down. He said, like, in other words, like you get an angle, a grinder, metal. I'm going to burr the bone down, and we're going to cover it, turn the flesh and move this and, fix it up. So he did all that with a 4-hour operation. Well, that was all right, shall we say. But I've got to say, what had happened also, I got then you wouldn't believe this, I got an infection. I mean, it was a very serious infection. And my local GP at the time just gave betadine and they call it a wick, and just a clean bit of, like a bandage thing, and tape it over. I wouldn't cure. They said, go off and, that's right, I was telling you about this thing, they fixed it up. Well, they put a month's worth of antibiotics in a container. Some of you nurses or anyone out there would know it's on this container. It goes through and through a cannula into the body, and it flushes out this infection, I came close. But then I had, got over all that years ago, and then I had, and this quite amazed me, that was close enough, having a hole in the head, literally, and not having an infection that would kill you, but a serious infection, enough. In other words, they pumped this thing through me for a month in this bottle, and you go every week, get it filled up. So I fast forward then for some years, until only, on 2016 or 2017, I think it was, a couple of years back, I had a hernia. And it was a pretty serious sort of hernia, but I went away with John Boyle, my friend, and we went off to New South Wales. And it was pretty uncomfortable, Quite uncomfortable, actually, this hernia. It was huge. Like a lump, huge lump in the groin, And so they said, we'll give you an operation. Oh, that's no trouble. In other words, you come in on one day, you have the operation, and you go home the next day. Well, it wasn't that simple. Had the operation all right, and the doctor said I'd never seen a hernia that large, and fixed it up. But then the bleeding wouldn't stop. And they came and said, well, we've got a problem. The bleeding's not stopping. I'll have to give you permission for a blood transfusion or extra blood, Yeah, of course, I had that. And still wasn't stopping, so. Oh, well, we'll have to give you another one. So they gave me another one. Now, they discharged me, but I was in extreme pain. I'm talking, really, they just gave me very powerful painkillers and everything else, and I still was in great deal of pain over a week or more, and etc., etc. Anyway, I came in. Now, this is where you talk about human error with some of these things. I came in and, I'll send you downstairs for, I guess, like an MRI, how would you call it, like CAT, no, not CAT scan, some other test, Anyway, I went downstairs, so to speak, to this other guy who did a test, ultrasound they call it, that's right. Anyway, he did this, and he said, you've got an infection. Look, go and see your GP today. You've got an infection, right? So you do that, and he did drawing. This was like I guess it was a printed off thing of showing your testicles and body. Your that part of the body where the thing in the general region where it happened. So go and see about that, and I went to the doctor. never been to this particular doctor before. She looked at it and she was astounded. Each of the doctors, by the way, as I'm going along, he said about that's right, you know, I had this thing. Anyway, I had this thing, and they did the drawing and all the rest of it. I'm trying to, sorry about being a bit confused over this. Sent me back. Now, when I went back, and it's like, how are you going? You've got these apprentice doctors, I call them, you know, they're interns or whatever. Oh, I'm not going too well. I'm taking all these painkillers. This is a week later, after the test. They should have said, whoa, go straight upstairs. Well, this is pretty bad here. You know, you better get this fixed up. In other words, blood had been going through my body. Yeah. Basically, it killed one of the testes, by the way. And there was no alarm bells over that at that time. Just incredible. So I get up there and, oh, I'm going to go and get my boss. So they go and get the guy, and he comes in. And he read the paper, honestly. He read the paper like that. So, oh, we'll have to operate on that. I said, oh, okay, oh, can we do that, and etc., you know. Yeah, I'll tell you what, we can today, we'll do it today. I ring my wife? Yeah, of course. So I ring my wife. Anyway, it was such an emergency. You wouldn't believe this. Someone in the medical field, like nurses or whatever it might see this, would be astounded by it. He took me down to the ward, literally through the fire escape and into the ward. And he just said, put a gown on this guy, I'm going to operate on him this afternoon. Well, it was astounding. And no shower. When was your last meal? You know, this morning. So, oh, well, that's okay. So they did the operation. I came out of all that, and I was pretty weakened, you know, after an operation. I'm laying in the bed, of course, and the doctor's going to come down and have a look and this and that. There was another doctor came in. He was, I suppose you call them interns or whatever. This is a guy that's nearly fully qualified out and let out to work. Anyway, he came in and he said, how you going? Oh, you know, he said, oh, you're lucky. You're lucky you had that operation today. Otherwise you could have got sicker and sicker. And I said, and died? And he said, and died. You could have got septicemia and the whole body shuts down. There's no way out of septicemia. You're just gone. So I thought, oh, that's nice. Whoa, you know. So one testy got killed over this, literally. I've got one left, so to speak. All right. I regard it as a miracle because he said, if you hadn't done it today, you could have got septicemia. You would have died. No question of it. Finish. Well, I'm sure there are other things I could tell you, but I just say one thing that I am very, very blessed about these things. Now, straight away, anyone out there who's a bit of a cynic or a non-Christian or whatever would say, oh, yeah, this is only a coincidence. The other things, they go, yeah, a bit of luck there. And got away with that one, and you got away with nearly being killed by a train, and you got away with the two major operations and the cancer and that sort of thing. Well, I can tell you, I wasn't a Christian when I was a young kid, but I was an adult. Very much an adult when I became one. Now you say, well, why would you become a Christian? I've got to advise you of this. Anyone who's considering any of this right now, in other words, should do their research. Always do the research. And I've spoken about other issues, and I've got friends who don't like it, even when I'm talking about my experience of seeing a UFO at the age of 15 and photographing in broad daylight, silver disc and all the rest of it. and my experience in reading about and studying. Oh, well, sorry about all that. Had a camera issue. I think SD card just ran out of capacity, to be honest. Well, I'd like to round this off anyway right now, because it's gone for a long time. So, as I was saying, whether our modern day, our 21st century understanding of things, of course, is the main reason that we can understand something has occurred or was as described, in other words, over hundreds of years of craft in the sky, and they called them flying discs or flying chariots. Back in biblical times, you had people went up in a chariot and flew around and saw things. Of course they did. The chariot was, today we'd call it a spacecraft. There's nothing funny about it. There's nothing blasphemous about it. It's only a description that they made in biblical times, and even in later, many hundreds of years later and 1,000 years later, of what they knew at the time. If something was described as a flying disc or a chariot, or a shield was another typical one. Oh, the shape of a shield was flying across the sky. Of course it did. Who these people are, where they came from, and God's plural if you like, someone has taken people, even in those days, on a craft. Now, whether you're talking about Christ going in a craft, and some people would poo-hoo that and probably blast me, give me a blowtorch to the belly, as we say in Australia. I don't care about that. I'm not concerned about that. I don't worry about if a person gets offended by that. I'm really sorry that you're offended, but I'm just converting something into modern day language, shall we say, and understanding. It doesn't destroy the facts. In other words, the basic story, as I began to say, was God exists, His Son Jesus exists to this day, and heaven exists, angels exist, and I happen to believe, incidentally, and some of my Christian friends would want to roast me for this, but I happen to believe that God created thousands, if not a million, planets in the universe filled with life. But right now I'm not going to go into all of that. I'm just giving you what my Christian friends and I would describe as a witnessing of my life when it comes to miracles and accepting that God has, for His own reasons as it were, allowed me to live and given me a great life and a long life. I'm only 68 years old now, but who knows? No one knows how long we're going to go. But giving me all of that, and reasonable health, considering that I've had tremendous things over the years, but my enthusiasm is still very high, and my travel over the years and my plans to travel into the future are still all there, and I'm after COVID-19 and all the rest of it. So we're getting off the track a little bit on some of that, but I just wanted to conclude by saying investigate this. If you're not a Christian, The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel is a book that is well written, well worthwhile reading, will change your views if you give it an opportunity. You read it and decide. If you don't, if you're a little bit like my brother Chris and others that I know, and you don't want to read books, oh, I can't read a book, 200 pages, whatever. Okay, there's the video called The Case for Christ, and that is all laid out for you, and it'll be about 45 to 50 minutes long. It's all done. Have a look at it, consider it, and I'd like to have some civil and polite comments, please, on this. It's going to go, obviously, it's going to YouTube, and from there it'll go to Facebook and I will find a way of putting it onto Flickr via a link and so forth. So any of my friends or any of my people that want to view this, and I've got quite a number of people who have subscribed to my channel, would like to make a comment, please give it an opportunity. In other words, I'm sure by now you would have heard my case, as it were. So I would just really like to thank all of you for viewing, and hope to hear from you before very long.